All right, welcome. Thank you for joining me this evening. Today, the webinar topic is Should I Stay or Should I Go? And this webinar is specifically tailored for people who are selling in this market and looking at buying as well. So we're going to talk about all the considerations and strategies that could be helpful if that's something you're thinking of doing, selling and or buying in this market. All right, so before we get into the content, just want to make sure if you don't know me yet, that you have a little bit of background on me. My name is Carrie Gatto, and I'm with Keller Williams Realty, the Cambridge Somerville office. I work all throughout Greater Boston. I actually live in Stoneham with my husband and 3 kids, and I've lived in the Boston area since I was in college. I went to Boston College and also got a master's at Emerson College in film production, hence why my team name is Big Picture Realty. So I have now going on 12 years experience full-time in the area. I've been with Keller Williams for about 6 years, and I have a passion for the investment side of real estate. I really believe in the power of real estate to help people build wealth and financial security over time. So I put an emphasis on that. I wrote a book about it, and I like to educate my clients on it too. And I do most of my business by referral at this point, which is really, really nice. Hi, Karen. How are you? Okay, so the goal today of the webinar is basically to educate, obviously, inform, and to inspire confidence in you and in anyone watching the recording. Because what I found over my years of working in real estate is that a confident client usually results in a very smooth and successful transaction. It gets intense pretty quick when you're in the middle of a real estate transaction, and it never feels good when you don't know what's about to happen next, or you're not sure what's the right decision, or you just don't really know what's going on. That tends to make people very anxious. You're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars, and also all the moving and emotions that have to do with that. So that's why I do these. I just want everyone to feel confident, because that generally makes the whole experience much better. And that being said, I definitely encourage any questions. If you guys want to put a question in the chat box, raise your hand, or just unmute yourself, feel free. I'm perfectly fine with that. And yeah, I would love for it to be interactive tonight. So the big question that we're going to try and answer today is, should I sell now or wait it out? And why is this the question on everyone's mind? Well, it has to do with the market right now. It's no secret, the market's incredibly hot. And so I thought we'd start off by just going over some market data statistics to see what is actually going on. So these are the latest statistics, sorry, for single families in Massachusetts, right? And what this is, it's a comparison, a year-over-year comparison. So we're looking at right now today compared to 1 year ago, 2021, and what's the differential there. So listing units is the amount of listings available on the market. And compared to this time last year, the inventory, as we call it, is down over 18%, which is huge, especially when you consider that last year at this time, we were in the height, the thick of the pandemic, right? So it was tight then, and now it's even tighter. We also have days on market is down 20% from last year, so listings are selling quicker. So if something comes on the market and it's priced reasonably well and it's a good property, it tends to fly off the market. So we have the average days on market right now is 36, but many properties are selling much quicker than that. If it is priced well, it usually sells in a weekend or two. And then the next data point is absorption rate. And this is just basically a ratio of let's see, so it's how many months it takes for a property to sell divided by how many properties are on the market. So basically, it's a measure of how quickly the supply is being absorbed by the market, by the buying population. So a higher number means that it's a hotter market, it's a seller's market. And so as you can see, this number is up over 18% from last year as well. In fact, anything over 20% for an absorption rate is considered a seller's market. And here we have 214%. So yeah, it's a seller's market. And this particular stat is important to know about because it's a future predictor of prices. So before prices change, this absorption rate data point will predict that's going to happen because it measures supply and demand. And when, we all know when demand outweighs supply, prices tend to go up. So yeah, it looks like prices are going to be going up for the immediate future anyway. And then months of inventory is down over 14% from last year. So we have less than half a month of inventory available in the market. So that means if no new listings came on the market as of today, it would take less than 2 weeks for whatever's available right now to sell, which is crazy. And average sale price is up over 8% from last year for single families in Massachusetts. And typically, a normal balanced market will yield 5% appreciation. So again, this is definitely on the high side. And the average sale price of a single family right now is around $647 in Massachusetts. So this is like the lopsided market that we're in right now. And I wanted to show you condos as well in case anyone is thinking of selling a condo. It's pretty similar, except it's even more so, actually. We actually saw a little bit of a dip of condo pricing in the beginning of the pandemic because people were wary of living in condo buildings and they wanted to move. They were preferring to move to single families, but they have, somebody trying to get in. Okay. One moment. Sorry. Hopefully that helps. Okay. Yeah. So, but since then, they have clearly risen again. So listing units are down 35% from last year. Days on market is down over 15%. Absorption rate skyrocket again. So it's 78% higher than last year. Months of inventory, it's less than a month and it's down 44% from last year. And the average sale price of condos is up 15% as of right now compared to last year. So the average sale price of a condo in Massachusetts is close to that of a single family at $617. Okay. So all of this kind of has led to the situation, which I like to call the catch-22 of 22. Basically, that is that sellers are hesitant to come onto the market because if they're buying, they're afraid that they're not going to be able to find something to buy because inventory is so low. But that, of course, means that, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because those listings that would be on the market are not coming on. So we have this bottleneck in the inventory situation. So these are some of the strategies that I want to talk about today that can help a seller in this kind of market to make their move and to be able to buy confidently and make that transition without being homeless, without having to pay 2 mortgages or just be stuck, selling when they don't have a new home to buy. So the first one is you can make your sale subject to finding suitable housing. And this is very common, especially in a seller's market. And basically what that means is that you can attract a buyer and accept an offer, but it will be contingent on your finding a new home that you love. And you get to decide, what that home is. If you don't find a home for any reason, then you can actually cancel the deal. You can terminate the transaction because you have this contingency. And you have flexibility in the closing timeline so that the buyer fully understands that you might need to push back the closing. Now, there will be some parameters set there. The buyer will say, well, I can give you, this much time. Maybe it's 2 months or 3 months. I've seen up to 6 months, but they'll have, some end date on there, but basically you'll have a lot more flexibility. And again, you can actually cancel the deal if you don't find something. So you're really in the driver's seat. And then the second strategy is a use and occupancy, or UNO, or rent back. And what that means is that you can have an accepted offer on the property that you're selling, your current home, and actually close on the home and then rent it back from the new owner for a period of time. And typically that would be anywhere from like a week to 2 months. And then there would be a market rent determined. It'd either be based on market rent or perhaps the carrying costs of the property, so that the new owner is not losing money by allowing you to do the rent back. Although I have seen it done for free actually too. It all depends, it's negotiable. So I highly recommend this strategy for anyone actually who's buying and selling, or should I say selling and buying, because you never ever want to have 2 closings on the same day or back to back. It's just not a good idea, trust me, because there are quite often delays. If a buyer's getting financing, for example, there could be, a few days of delays just for logistical underwriting purposes. And if your purchase is contingent on their purchase going through of your current home, then it will have a domino effect and, could really be a problem. So that's why I suggest at least a week use and occupancy if you're selling and buying a home at the same time. So you have that cushion, you have that leeway built in just in case anything gets delayed, as they often do. But you can also have this rent back period for up to 60 days. And that's, hi, Eric. That's because the outer limit is because if the buyer has a mortgage, then they have, their mortgage company is going to want them to move in after about 60 days. They don't want them to go longer than that because that would entail an investment mortgage instead of an owner occupant one. But again, this builds in some more time for you if you're concerned about finding a new home. Now you have your escrow period of a month, 6 weeks, or 60 days, plus a UNO of up to 60 days. So now you have ample time to make sure you secure a new home. And if neither of those options make you feel comfortable, there are a couple other options too, being that you can access equity from your current home to buy a new home. So in this case, you would actually get a line of credit, or you would refinance and pull cash out of your current home, place an offer on a new home, and then sell your current home. So you'd be buying first and then selling. And then the other option here is a bridge loan, which is similar in that you have a mortgage company give you a loan to bridge the gap. So you, again, can buy first, and then you just pay off the bridge loan once you sell your current home. And I do have resources for those options that I can share with you if you're interested in looking into them. However, I will say that I definitely recommend, ideally, if you can, to sell first and buy second. And that's because I think, it's like you don't want to put the cart before the horse, because when you sell first and you have your home under agreement, which is what I mean by sell, you have your home under agreement, then you know exactly the price you're getting for that home. You know what money you have to work with for your next home, and you become a stronger buyer, as opposed to trying to buy a home subject to selling your current home, which means you're a weak buyer because you don't have that equity available to you. So this way, you secure the first sale, and then you give yourself time using those first two strategies we just went over, and you're able to buy your next home confidently and comfortably. And, like I said, we can have the buyer give you more time, or just make the whole thing subject to finding a new home. And a lot of people ask me, well, won't that turn buyers off? And yes, there will be some buyers that it won't work for, but because it's such a hot seller's market, there will definitely be a lot of buyers that will agree to that, just because they need to, or really are desperate to secure a home. Buyers are very motivated right now because interest rates are so low, and again, inventory is so low too. So we can definitely make it work. All right, any questions on any of that, on any of those strategies? Feel free to raise your hand, use the chat box, or just unmute yourself. Hey, Eric.
Hi, Carrie. I like the idea of selling first, because we're wondering whether to love it or list it, our home, and whether to remodel or make our home, the forever home, or move on. And we looked at a home yesterday, a little bit more than our home, but it feels like too fast. So I like the idea of selling, and then maybe renting or doing something, for a bit. So anyhow, we're just like in this whether we love it or list it type things.
Yeah, good. And
Question might be, how to, I don't know, what would be a good question, Diane? Maybe like, I sense right now is a good time to sell a house, I guess. Would you agree with that, Carrie?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a better time to sell a house, to be honest with you. And that's because, the inventory levels are low, the interest rates are low, so buyers can afford to pay more, and it still works for them for the monthly payments. And I don't know, so interest rates have started to creep up a little bit already. They have gone up since late last year. They're expected to go up more. Nobody can really predict the future, obviously, but and we don't know the peak until it's passed. We're just, we don't know. I don't expect a big crash, but we just don't know. So I feel like strike while the iron's hot, and and use the equity if it's a good time for you personally to sell. And if you are buying as well, use one of those strategies like the rent back, or subject to finding suitable housing. Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much, Carrie.
You're welcome. Yeah. Okay, Marilyn is asking, how many houses are not appraising for the sales price? Do you find banks have adjusted, or are buyers supposed to cover the gap? That's a great question. So yeah, the rule of thumb right now is bidding wars. I mean, it used to be the exception, now it's the rule, and it's odd if there's not multiple bids on a house. So what that means is that oftentimes the purchase price will be above the listing price, sometimes by a lot. I just had buyers that they offered $115,000 over asking price. And that's not uncommon right now. So that does present a concern about appraisals. And, most appraisers, they are pretty savvy to the market. They know what's going on, but still the thing that happens is that the comps that we're using, agents, buyers, and appraisers are from up to 6 months ago. And the market is going up so quickly that clearly, today's prices are not going to be equitable to, yesterday's prices. So there are some gaps happening here and there. And that's something to keep in mind. But because, again, the market's going up so quickly that, and your closing is going to be 2 months, 3 months, chances are that even if there is an appraisal gap of like $5,000 or $10,000, let's say, your market value is probably going to get there by the time you close. I mean, that's the market that we're in. And yeah, that listing was underpriced. It definitely was underpriced by probably 100,000. So, and a lot of agents are doing that right now to get the bidding war situation. Oops, there was another. So the question about if you have to come up with a difference in order to get the mortgage, that depends on whether you have a mortgage contingency in the offer. If you have a mortgage contingency, then you do not have to cover the difference. You can cancel the deal if the appraisal comes in short, or you can approach the seller and say, here's what happened. We can't move forward because we are not willing to bring the difference, whatever that might be, to the table, and ask them to renegotiate the price. And sometimes you might be able to have them absorb the difference, or you might come to a common ground in the middle. You might be able to work something with that. So as long as you have the mortgage contingency, you don't. Yeah, it does have to be written into the offer. It's actually a standard contingency to have a mortgage contingency. That's part, yeah, the appraisal is part of the mortgage contingency. So it protects you against a low appraisal. Now, that being said, some buyers are choosing to waive their mortgage contingency or waive the appraisal part of it because it's so competitive at the moment. But you don't have to, it's a choice. If you have your mortgage contingency, then you're protected. Great question. Okay, so I think we talked quite a bit about that question. And then, oh, sorry. Okay, yes, Marilyn, you can waive the mortgage contingency and still get a mortgage. You can say, look, we're willing to take the risk if the mortgage doesn't go through, and you can still have the mortgage and you can still have the appraisal. But like I said, it's standard to have it. Hope that makes sense. Yeah, so then the next question, right, is if it's a good time to sell. Yes, it is. Unequivocally, it's a good time, as far as the market goes anyway. But is it a good time to buy, right? Because it's such a seller's market. Does that mean I'm going to be screwed on the buying side? Well, I look at it this way. So say you're buying a home that's more expensive than the one you're in, and you're using financing, then you'd be better off locking in a low interest rate before they go up. So, for example, upsizing. If you're using a mortgage at all, I wouldn't wait until the rates increase, right? Because that's going to affect your payment, and you might as well, if you can find a house that you like and that the numbers work for you right now, it's definitely a good time to buy. And then if you're downsizing, or in which case you might be paying cash or bringing a large down payment, then you'll have a clear advantage, because the largest portion of the buying population right now are first-time buyers. So you will be able to oftentimes win the bidding wars, because, like we just talked about, appraisals sometimes come in low, and that presents a big risk to a seller. They don't want, the appraisal usually happens like 3 weeks into the deal. They don't want that deal to fall apart 3 weeks in and have to go back on the market. So having the cash or a larger down payment will benefit you if you're buying a home that's maybe a less expensive home than the one you're in, or whatever. So, and by the way, more inventory is coming. We're right in the beginning. It's not even technically spring yet. So more inventory is on the way. I'm already seeing it pick up, right in time with a nicer weather, and it will definitely pick up, and you'll see more options. Okay, Marilyn is asking, I didn't think it was up to the buyer to waive the appraisal. That's up to the bank, isn't it? So you would still have the appraisal. You would absolutely still have the appraisal. It's just that you wouldn't have your contingency. So if you waive the mortgage contingency, you would be responsible for bringing the difference if there's a low appraisal. So you still have the appraisal. If it comes in low and you waived your mortgage contingency in the offer, then you would be responsible for bringing the difference to the table, as well as your down payment. Okay. The other thing I just wanted to touch on is there's been a lot of equity build up over the past few years because of the double-digit appreciation. And it's been a seller's market for like over 10 years now. So a lot of people are sitting on a lot more equity than ever before in this country. And if you've owned your home for more than 10 or 20 years, chances are you could have a real a lot of equity. And the IRS, just keep in mind, you know, they have an exemption, a tax exemption on the capital gains or the proceeds of the sale up to $250,000 for an individual and up to $500,000 for a married couple. So if you're approaching that number in your equity, or if you surpass that number, you might want to consider making a move now so that you're not going to be taxed on the additional profit if you wait 5 years, if that makes sense, because profits above those margins are taxable. So if you were to wait and gain more appreciation, more equity, well, that's great, but you do increase your tax exposure. Whereas if you were to sell now and roll the equity into another property, then your tax basis would then be the purchase price of that new property, and you'd be protected by those margins again. So if you are a longtime homeowner with a lot of equity, that's just something to consider. I thought I'd just give a quick overview of the cost of selling and the timeline, but if anyone has any more questions on the strategy part or the market conditions, we can take a moment here. I hope that was clear, Marilyn. Marilyn says, doesn't the new house have to cost more than what you're selling in order to avoid the tax implications? So, well, what I'm saying is if you have less than $250,000 of equity in your home for an individual, or less than $500,000 of equity in your home for a married couple, you can sell and not pay taxes on that profit. Okay? So it's not to do with the new home, it's just to do with the profit from that sale. And those are the tax, that's the tax exemption, the 250 and the 500. If you go above those numbers, then you could be taxed on the additional profit over and above those numbers. Okay. Of course, check with your CPA. I'm not a CPA, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention in case it might be applicable. Not if you roll into another property. No, I think that what you're talking about is a 1031 exchange, which applies to investment properties, Marilyn, and it wouldn't apply to an owner-occupied property. And I do have webinars on that too. But yeah, if you're rolling into another property, it wouldn't really be a factor if you're talking about owner occupancy. But again, check with your CPA, please, because I'm not a tax professional. Just something, I just wanted to give you food for thought there. And then, so the cost of selling, this is just a sample breakdown of the estimated cost of selling. And this is something I'll provide to you when we have a consultation. So there's no surprises later on when you're like, oh my God, what's that expense? So this is just to give you, so I have here 2 columns, low and high end of the expected range of sale price. And there's a brokerage fee that's paid by the seller and then split with the buyer's brokerage. There's a smoke detector inspection that varies by city or town, but it's typically $25 or $50 for a single family. And attorney fees is, I put $1,000. It could be a little less, a little more, depending on who you use, but please definitely use a real estate attorney. I have some clients that say they want to use like their uncle who's a divorce attorney or something like that, and I would not suggest that, just as you wouldn't use a podiatrist to work on your teeth. You want to make sure you have a specialist who does this day in, day out and knows what they're doing and knows what's normal and what's not. So definitely use a real estate attorney, and it's a flat fee. They shouldn't charge you hourly. And then there's just miscellaneous mortgage payoff or courier fees, about $300 or so. And then there's a stamps tax, and a lot of people don't know about that. It's a Massachusetts sales tax charged to the seller on real estate sales. And you calculate it as $4.56 per $1,000 of sale price. So it usually works out to be, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, depending on the sale price. And then that gives you your total costs, and you can calculate your proceeds from there. Any questions? Great. Okay, and then just an overview of the listing timeline. So the escrow period is typically like 45 to 60 days. Usually it's 45, like 6 weeks. But it could be extended. You can request, as a seller, you can request a longer escrow, like 60 or 90 days, if you like. And of course, you can add to that with the use and occupancy rent back strategy, if you like too, so you have longer time to find your new home while remaining in your current home. But that's the typical timeline. And then, as you'll see, I have 3 steps before we actually launch the listing with active marketing. And I think that's important to know that it's better to have that preparation phase. So in other words, that's when you meet with your agent, you get a consult as to what your anticipated sale price will be, and if anything is suggested to be done to the home. Nothing is needed right now because it's such a hot market. You absolutely don't have to do a thing. I can sell your home if it's falling down, but if you're looking to get the most equity out of the property, then there might be a few things you can do to make it more marketable, make it show better, and attract more offers and ultimately a better price. So if that's something that you're interested in, I can give you a small list of minor updates, usually just decluttering and maybe some paint, things like that. Totally optional though. And I always include professional photography. Please, please, please don't not use professional photography on your listing. I cringe when I see agents posting listing photos that are done on their phone. It's so important to present it professionally and in its best light to attract more buyers to come see it. So yeah, professional photography and also a floor plan is part of my service. And we're gonna, talk about a showing schedule. What works for you? What is, is it a holiday weekend? Do we want to make sure we're working around sports events? Things like that should be taken into consideration. And typically right now, if you were to list this spring, I would recommend open houses on the weekend and then a call for offers the following Tuesday. So yeah, it's important to talk about a strategic showing schedule. See, it looks like we have a question. Oh, what are the updates you recommend when preparing to sell? Yeah, so it really depends on the property. So usually at a minimum, I would say do some decluttering. And if there's any just deferred maintenance around the house, especially as you curb appeal, as you walk into the home, the entrance, and the first things that buyers see, you don't want them to see anything broken or in rough shape. So make sure that it looks presentable. And if you're so moved, some fresh paint usually is the cheapest, most cost-effective way, gets the most bang for the buck. But again, you really don't have to do anything, but I'm happy to come by and take a look at your home and see if I would recommend anything for your home. Marilyn, I pay for the photography. It's included in my service and the floor plans. If you have an in-ground pool, do you recommend selling during the summer? Yeah, I would, absolutely. Show off the pool, definitely. Okay, and then, after we've got the listing thoroughly filled out so that everyone, all the buyers can see exactly what the home is and all the disclosures, so they feel really comfortable stepping forward with their best offer. We'll make sure all the marketing is ready to go, and install a lockbox, order the sign, things like that. Then we go ahead and market the listing. So it goes on the MLS, and through Keller Williams, it goes on over 400 other websites. I also have a great agent network, and I let all agents who have a buyer match know about the listing and the best attributes and when it's being shown. And I do targeted social media campaign and even invite neighbors to share the listing as well. So it's like kind of a whirlwind once the marketing actually starts. And that's why I recommend leaving some time for the preparation so that you can prepare and your agent can prepare and do the best job possible for you. Okay, and then like I said, if it's priced well and marketed well, then typically you'll have an accepted offer within a week or two. And so when you choose an offer, and there might be a round for best and final, if there's multiple bids, ask all the buyers for their best and final offer, which allows you the opportunity to sort of create the offer that works best for you in terms of price and terms, contingencies, timing, deposits, rent backs, all of that. We can basically custom make an offer for you because buyers are competing against each other, and you'll accept an offer. There might be an inspection, there might not. That's one of those standard contingencies that people are waiving a lot of times right now. So either way, the purchase and sale will be signed about 2 weeks after the accepted offer. Then comes the appraisal. And then you're just kind of waiting for the buyer's financing to go through. You don't have to do much except maybe you're shopping for a new home at that point. Because once you have the purchase and sale in hand, the signed purchase and sale, and you get a 5% deposit in escrow at that point, you have a pretty solid deal. And you can go shop for that new home at that point, and you can show the signed P&S to a seller and say, look, we've got a closing date, the equity will be ready to go at that point, and you're a strong buyer. Okay, so you can definitely start making offers at that point. And then just a few days before the closing, you'll get a closing disclosure outlining all the money going, each way from buyer to seller, seller to buyer, and any expenses will be factored in. The buyer will do a final walkthrough, and then the closing will happen. And that's that. Any other questions about the timeline? Okay. Oh, okay. Biggest mistakes sellers make. So just want you to know some of the most common pitfalls so that you can avoid them when selling your home. Okay, so every time I talk to a seller about listing their home, well, let's say not every time, maybe like 90% of the time, they tell me that they have a friend or a neighbor or a relative who wants to buy their home, or maybe they're getting mass mailings, people writing them saying, we want to buy your home, or they're getting phone calls. And that's great. I mean, obviously the home's desirable, but the reason those people are reaching out to you directly to buy your home is because they want a deal, right? They know that the minute it goes on the market, the price will be higher and they'll have to pay more. So they're trying to circumvent the market and going direct to the seller, to you. So what I will offer a seller in that situation is you can actually do an exclusion to the listing agreement. You can write in a name, let's say John Smith made you an offer, or said he might make you an offer. Either way, we can write in that name and say John Smith is excluded from this listing agreement, meaning that we can put the home on the market. We can take whatever offers come from the buyers that came through the marketing and compare to John Smith's offer. And if his offer is the best offer, he gets to buy it, no commission is due. And that way, you're not sacrificing a direct offer by putting your home on the market. And I'm willing to do that because I know that you'll always get more money on the market because you have more exposure, you have professional presentation, you have professional negotiation. So I'm willing to take that risk. More often than not, John Smith never even puts an offer in writing, so it doesn't even matter. But you're protected just in case they do, that you don't have to pay commission. And the same thing goes for sale by owner, like putting a sign in the yard, putting an ad on Zillow. Studies have shown over and over again that for sale by owner sales are consistently lower than agent-driven sales for all the reasons I just mentioned of the marketing, the exposure, the presentation, and the negotiation. So, so don't think that you're gonna net more money by doing it yourself. You're actually gonna net more even after the commission by going with an experienced agent. Oh, by the way, we also handle the entire transaction from tip to tail, so you can focus on your life, and you'll avoid potential liability because brokers are licensed and insured against errors and omissions. Nobody wants liability. Number 2, biggest mistake is not acting soon enough. So going back to the preparation that I talked about, you want to give yourself time leading up to the actual listing of the home. I put the steering wheel in here, the driver in here, because have you ever noticed, like, when you're in a rush, that's when you get into a traffic jam? It's Murphy's Law, right? So if you don't leave yourself enough time, you're kind of inviting problems. It's much better to start the conversation early and make time your friend, put time on your side, and that way you're not under pressure. And we all make better decisions when we're not under pressure. And again, you give your agent enough time to put together a great marketing package. So don't be afraid to reach out and start the conversation. It never hurts to talk, too early about it. And, again, preparing for success. I know when I'm cooking, I like to have this mise en place because I know, like, the heat's going, I won't be stressed out, I'll have everything ready, and the dish comes out much better. Same thing in real estate. Number 3 biggest mistake is waiting to find a new home first. And this is more applicable to someone who is using the equity from their current home to buy the next home. If you're able to buy without selling your current home, okay, great. More power to you. Wait as long as you want. But if you don't want to be carrying 2 mortgages or be pressured into fire selling your current home, it is, like I said before, better to sell first and then buy, because that way you'll be a stronger buyer, you'll have your current home under contract, you'll know what the price of your current home is actually going to be, and you won't be carrying 2 homes at once. On the other flip side of the coin is overthinking it. I think some people will ride the fence a little bit and maybe over improve their home, and that's not necessarily, if you're going to stay there long term, great, but if you are thinking of selling in the next 5 years, then you don't want to over improve the home. Maybe you're second guessing your decision, just sort of like flip-flopping back and forth. But I think, again, if you do start the conversation, if you do find out what your home is worth, then maybe you feel more confident in taking the next steps, and being informed sometimes can spur into action. And after all, the early bird gets the worm. And like I said before, we don't know what's going to happen next with this market. Nobody knows. So strike while the iron is hot. And lastly, big mistake is overpricing. And I know it's a seller's market, and a lot of people will say, well, shouldn't we just pad for negotiation, or shouldn't we ask for the moon because it's such a hot market? But the fact is, pricing is so important, even more so in this seller's market, because everyone is used to homes flying off the shelf And if a home does not sell in the first weekend, buyers already start to question what's wrong. You know, the first question buyers will ask is how much is the house? And then the second question is how long has it been on the market? And these days, if it's been on for 2 weeks, it's stale already. It's crazy, but it's true. So if you don't have a bidding war in the first week, buyers are already going to be like, and then they're going to try to lowball you. So it's much better to price correctly and get buyers all competing, and that way you will get the best possible price on the market. So even if you're not in a hurry to sell, it's still best to price so that it goes under contract in the first week. And then you can determine the length of your escrow or the length of your use and occupancy so that the timeline works for you. But still, you want to grab that first week because that's when the listing is hot. That's when you have the most buzz and the most heat on the property. And you'll get the most price, the biggest price. So that's about all I have. These are just some of the takeaways that I have. And again, I'm happy to stay on for a while, answer any questions that you might have. But yeah, I just want to leave you with these. So no matter who you work with, just take these tips for choosing a realtor. Make sure that you have a pricing strategy based on a data-driven market analysis, and you truly understand where the numbers are coming from and how to make your listing competitive against the rest of the listings. And make sure that you're going to have quality marketing materials. You know, you definitely want to have professional photos because buyers are looking online. They're going to see your home in just this little tiny box on their computer or on their phone. And that little window needs to attract them enough to motivate them to come in person and see the home. So that's really important, presentation. And always make sure you hire an agent who cares about your goals and puts the relationship first, because it truly is, you know, a business partnership. And this is a very big deal to sell your home. And you want someone who's going to be really good at communication. Transparency and communication is definitely key. And you want to, you know, understand the costs, understand the process before you get started in every step of the way. And that's why I do these webinars, because again, I like my clients and my people to be educated. I just think it sets everyone up for success. Eileen said, do you recommend staging? So again, that's a little bit of situational, depending on the home. So I usually will recommend staging for a vacant home. Definitely. I think it helps if, you know, say it's a newly constructed home or somebody's already moved out. It can help show the home, because an empty home actually looks smaller than one with furniture in it. And by Marilyn, for a home that's being lived in, I will help with some like light staging. Usually I don't recommend doing a full stage, but when we do a consultation, I can recommend some, you know, maybe an edit of what's already there, or moving things around, or just different small things that can help show the property in its best light and make the pictures pop too. So again, happy to come out and take a look if that would be helpful. What else? Oh, this is just a testimonial from a recent client, who, Carol and Bob, who sold and bought. We're lovely to work with. That's always my goal, stress-free, smooth, and safe. Okay, and there's all my contact information. I'll stay on here a little bit just in case anyone has any more questions, but you can always reach me via email and or phone. And I'll send you a copy of this recording of this replay tomorrow. So feel free to respond to that email if you want to set up a consultation or just have a phone call. I'm here to help. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Eileen. It's really nice chatting with you guys this evening, and have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the little bit of sunlight that we still have. Thanks, Karen. I'll see you Thursday, I hope.
Thanks, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Nice job, Carrie.
Thanks, Eric.
Good to
Thanks
see you.
Good to see you too. It's been a while.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Doing really well. How are
Oh, good.
you?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, busy,
Good.
you know?
Yeah, always.
Yeah, the coffee bar is humming along, and my daughter Stephanie's moving out soon, so that's kind of cool.
Where is she going?
Yeah, she's got a place down in downtown Beverly, and
Okay.
yeah, a
Nice.
bigger spot. Yeah, 1,800 square feet. She's gonna get a bigger oven. She's got an oven coming from Italy. How about that? You know, so
Wow.
yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
So this is her
So
own
that's good.
storefront.
Yeah, her own storefront and everything. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. So you've been
Um,
busy, huh?
yeah, I have. I have. I'm only up in Beverly now, like once, like on Mondays.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Hmm.
but
How is that? That's been really great. Those I haven't been able to look at all of your interviews, small business, but that's been really great. Yeah, I really appreciated you working with me on that too. That was fun.
that was super fun. Yeah, I
I
love
think it was super cold and I wasn't quite, feeling all the mojo, but it's amazing how when you just show up,
it.
things happen. So it's good. And it really
Totally.
communicates. So if you are with somebody like you, Carrie, and you feel comfortable, it's amazing how you can um, have a good conversation and allow others to enter in. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I know, and that was inspired me to do all these other interviews too. So it's been really fun.
that's brilliant, Carrie. Yeah.
Yeah.
How's your book going?
It's going really well. Yeah, I mean,